Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we have given up on trying to call the bottom on the creative bankruptcy of Gotham Knights. Sadly, as of recording, we still have not been told if our long entertainment nightmare will come to an end before this season does. So join me as I go through the mental profferings left to torment all and sundry by the CW and their band of misfit Batwoman writers. Oh, and you might want to buckle up, 'cause I get a little spicy with this one. Last week, we almost got the Turner duellicus that they have been teasing since the second episode, interrupted by projectile vomiting and convulsing on the part of Turner. I am guessing he read the scripts for the rest of the season and had an allergic reaction. This week, we start with another season recap before picking up the morning after Turner's fall into stupidity. I mean, his fall into the totally not contrived and scientifically retarded illness. The idiots scramble around trying to figure out how to help him and make him comfortable until the writers drop the answer into their laps. Robin comes in with filched supplies from her mother's hospital. Stephanie is busy trying to find a treatment without first knowing what is wrong with him, a step she, the brains of the operation, somehow forgot about. But that is okay, because while Cullen is trying to keep Turner's fever down, Harper is consulting the physician's desk reference that magically showed up in the tower and then magically spit out the right answer. She tells them all to back away from Turner, now! When they do, she pulls a Geiger counter out of her ass. I mean the totally believable storage spot conveniently in the tower, coming up with a completely not bullshit explanation for the Geiger counter being there. Didn't your school have a Geiger counter just laying around? Yeah, mine too. Anyway, Turner is clicking off the scale radioactive. At the marches, Brody is trying to find some painkillers after having oral surgery and finding the pills the dentist gave him wanting. Of course, he decides the best place to look is in his dad's safe. And because this is the episode where we get to show the true depths of Lincoln March's idiocy and the complete lack of imagination of the writers, Brody knows his dad's combination. While talking on the phone with a friend, he opens the safe to find Lincoln's mask and the pin camera they took off of Turner when they took him hostage. He ends the call, investigates the mask, and grabs the camera when he hears his father come in. He quickly shuts the safe, shoving the camera into his pocket. Lincoln enters the room and asks after Brody's tooth in the most caring and parental way we have yet seen out of Lincoln. Brody tells him he is fine, but he has to go. Lincoln then gets a call and tells whoever is on the other end that he found a way to track Turner and his friends. When we get to Harvey, he is still watching himself. Well, he's watching the video his alter made for him. We get to see more of the video this time. The alter is going on about wanting to talk to him like they did when they were a kid, in their dreams. The alter tells him that what he wants him to do is get the pills the GCPD shrink gave him, and take just enough not to kill him, so they can talk. The pills will put him into a very deep sleep, allowing his consciousness to talk to itself. Harvey, needless to say, is skeptical. For about half a second. The alter knew he would take that stance, but tells him he needs to take 17 pills so he can tell Harvey what he knows. Harvey squints like an idiot before taking out 17 pills and starts to down them. In his office. Without locking the door. Or letting his assistant know he will be busy for the rest of the afternoon. Somehow the idiots have found potassium iodide pills to take against radiation contamination. Cullen asks the pertinent question that occurred to none of the rest of them. Why isn't Cullen getting sick after handling the rock long enough to make the fake rock? They then discuss how to cure Turner of the radiation poisoning. Harper has no idea to treat that, and Stephanie tells her they can't, which is why they need to get him to a hospital immediately. Harper argues that would mean him waking up in a cell. Cullen agreeing, despite Stephanie thinking that is preferable to him never waking up at all. Robin suggests going to her mother, but that is when Turner wakes up and tells them no. He tells them to focus on getting Lincoln and the Court of Owls. Cullen wants to figure out a cure for him first, which would be a neat trick, since if it's bad enough, there is no cure for radiation poisoning. If not too bad to cure, potassium iodide pills would help him too. Anything else would likely be locked away in a pharmacy or hospital under tight control, given that the only people who would need it and not be able to get it legally would be terrorists messing around with weapons of mass destruction, meaning they would need to pull off another heist. Robin goes to sit with Turner and he tells her he is fine. He will take radiation poisoning over being tortured by the court any day. She asks what he means and he tells her they gave him a taste of the stuff Talon had on his blades to drive people insane. She wonders what he saw, and he brushes it off as not important. He tells her that the court tried to convince him the person who killed his parents was Bruce. She wants to know exactly what they told him. He says it doesn't matter because it could never be true. Right? Right? She looks stricken with the worst poker face ever, and she apologizes. When they go to commercial. Right off CW. When they come back, Robin has apparently been carrying the pages from Bruce's journal that she tore out before he could see them way back in episode 2. Why? So the story can happen, of course. She explains that Bruce felt guilty for the deaths, but she didn't believe he could kill anyone, since he was adamant about not killing when he took her on as Robin. So, she kept trying to figure out the real story. Turner is upset because she withheld the pages, but she explains that she didn't want to pile on after Bruce's death, and then him being blamed for it. She thought he had enough to deal with without her putting more on him. He tears into her for making choices for him and flying solo. Elsewhere in the tower, Stephanie goes to tell Harper that Brody needs her help, and Harper snipes at her about it. Cullen looks stuck in the middle when Stephanie sends a questioning look his way before leaving. As Stephanie leaves, Robin comes up and asks if they have found anything. Harper tells her that radiation victims can live for weeks or even years after exposure. She then tells Robin that he needs a blood transfusion. Robin decides to go rob a blood bank, since Turner doesn't want her around. When Stephanie gets to Brody, he tells her about looking for medicine and finding his father's mask. She starts to tell him about Lincoln, but he already knows his father is a killer, because he looked at the video of his dad killing Cressida. She tells him she needs it. He tells her he doesn't have it on him. He hid it with his weed. He then asks her how she knows about what his dad was up to. She hesitantly tells him she needs to explain about what his dad really is. But we don't get to see it because they cut to an upside-down Duella looking down at Turner. She snarks about how he looks and he tells her he is not in the mood. She lures him out of his funk by showing him she got the soup Bruce used to get him when he was sick. He appreciates it, and she jokes that if it is his last meal, it might as well be good. He jokes about her bedside manner, given that she sleeps with a switchblade. She apologizes for leaving him behind at the court gathering, and he tells her it was not her fault. That is when she notices he has blisters developing on his chest, saying it is getting a lot worse fast. For reasons I will never understand, unless the reason is so the story can happen, Harvey decided to take his trip to see the altar at his office instead of going home for privacy like an intelligent person. He wakes up in his office, or so he thinks. He quickly learns he is wrong when he hears himself talking to him. His alter is there making himself a drink. Harvey demands to know what is going on. His alter tells him he is not asking the right question. He should be asking why. After he makes Harvey ask it, the alter tells Harvey he is there to protect Harvey from things he can't handle. Dad was the first. He would tag in when Harvey couldn't handle life. Harvey demands to know then why did he wake up next to Rebecca March if the alter only tagged in when life got tough. The alter blows up at him, shooting back that it was him doing Harvey a solid because he knows she makes Harvey happy. He tells Harvey that with him in the crosshairs of the Court of Owls, he is going to need his alter even more. Then we cut to the siblings in the library. Harper is looking for more information on the doctor that did the electron experiments back in the 1920s before disappearing. Cullen decides this is a good opportunity to question Harper about her treatment of Stephanie earlier. She deflects by saying he reminded her what they need to be doing, namely getting their names cleared and getting out of Gotham like they originally planned. She doesn't need to be friends with Miss Quizbowl for that, since they are bailing once their lives are back to normal. Cullen asks if that is really what she wants. When she says of course, he tells her he has never had a family like the idiots, and she hasn't either. Why would they let that go? They then find an article that says the scientist's patients had symptoms similar to radiation poisoning and only lived 24 hours. And we get a commercial break. When we come back, the Harveys are still talking. The alter tells Harvey that the court is setting him up. Everything he thinks the alter is doing is just the court confusing him and making him think Harvey was involved, to distrust himself. The mayor, Cressida, it was all the court. The alter tells him the court just wants him to think he did it all. The Dark Knight was first, and now they are going after Gotham's White Knight, but not before he has outlived his usefulness. They will use him as a patsy. The court is good. They somehow found out about Harvey's alter, and how to bring him out with the piano music. A song his dad beat into him until he got it right. He hears those notes, and out comes Harvey's alter. The alter tells him that the court made a mistake. When they brought him out, he got a ringside seat into what they were up to and how they did what they did. The alter now wants Harvey to put him in, so he can do what needs doing. Take the court out. Harvey is not with that program. The alter then tells him that they did it before. Did he think his dad's death was really an accident? Meanwhile, Brody is having a hard time believing his father is the leader of a murderous secret cult that controls all of Gotham. Even though he saw the video evidence of it, and his girlfriend is telling him it is true. Stephanie wants to know if it is really easier to believe his father is just a killer. Brody says yes, it is. She tells him she knows it is a lot to take in. Brody is not sure how he can face his father now that he knows. Concern spiking on her face, Stephanie tells him that he cannot let on that he knows, or he will put himself in danger. He tells her he is already in danger, he and his mom. He pulls out his phone to call the police, and she tells him the court has its hooks in everywhere in the city, including GCPD. He tells her that he can't just do nothing. She tells him that he can only trust Harvey. He needs to get her the video and trust her to do the rest. Back at the tower, the idiots are arguing over Turner's condition while he deteriorates. He wants to know what they found out. What aren't they telling him? Contrary to what the others want, Duella tells him what they found out, that he's going to die. She tells him that unless they switch out his blood, he will be dead in 5 hours. Stephanie comes in with good news that we all know is going to go completely to shit. She informs them that Brody is going to help them. They are skeptical because Brody is an idiot. So she tells them that he found Turner's camera showing Cressida being killed by Lincoln in an owl mask. Cullen wonders that they might actually be able to clear their names, but Duella holds up the celebration to get them to make sure Turner is with them for the victory lap. They head off to get the transfusion ready to go, Duella jokingly asking him if he trusts her with a needle. He quips back that at least he knows she doesn't mind the sight of blood. Stephanie stays with him and asks how he is really feeling. He jokes that he is about to clear his name in time for it to appear in an obituary. She tells him he is going to get his life back. He is not sure there is a point to it. She knows about what Robin told him, and he goes maudlin on her. She tells him it isn't true, and he'll always have her. He kisses her, and he realizes immediately he has been friend-zoned. That she doesn't feel anything with Brody either demonstrates the writer's lack of creativity in the eventual shipping of Harper and Stephanie. He apologizes when they hear sirens approaching the school. The cops have arrived. And another commercial. When we come back, they are all panicking. Cullen tells them to hide everything so it doesn't look like they were ever there. Harper wants to know if Stephanie told Brody where they were, and she indignantly denies it. Duella then asks if she also told him that Turner was radioactive because the cops have brought the spacesuits, and they have Geiger counters. They figure out that the court knew what would happen and sent the GCPD goons after them. Cullen and Duella hoist Turner between them, practically dragging him. Stephanie tells them to get Turner into the tunnels because it might throw off the readings if he is underground. Harper asks about the police and she says to leave it to her. The police are following the radiation trail and find Stephanie smoking a bong. She stops, coughing, and then begs them not to tell her parents. Brody's dumbass, meanwhile, is getting the camera out of the light fixture he hid it in when his mom comes in all concerned. And damn, Lawrence Stamile is terrible. He tells her to go pack a bag, without bothering to make sure it was clear to talk about that sort of thing. He tells his mom they need to get out of Gotham because Dad killed Cressida. And then we cut back to the Harveys. Harvey wants to know what the altar did to his dad. The altar tells him it was more a matter of what he did to the railing of the balcony. Dad was a lot tougher than he thought. Dad's back was broken, so he couldn't go anywhere, but it still took him 3 hours to die. The first 2 of those hours was full of him begging the altar to call 911. The last hour was him begging to put him out of his misery. Harvey is upset that the altar killed his father. The altar tells Harvey it was either him or us. He just made sure it wasn't us. Harvey is amazed that the altar wants him to let him have the steering wheel. The altar tells Harvey that if he wants justice, then he has to fight fire with fire. He doesn't want Harvey to let him have the wheel. He wants Harvey to give him the damn keys. At the hospital, Robin goes to talk to her mom. She wants Mom to come with her, so she takes her to a room and begs her not to call the cops. Mom says if she's in trouble, she will do what she can, but that is all she can promise. Robin then pulls the privacy curtain back to reveal Turner laying in a hospital bed looking like death warmed over. Mom recognizes him and is aghast. Robin tells her that he is innocent, but if she doesn't help him in the next few minutes, he will die. And another commercial. with the marches once more, and Rebecca wants Brody to slow down, which is the giveaway that all is not as it seems. She was all ready to tell Harvey that Lincoln was a monster last week, but this week she is having trouble believing her son when he tells her dad is a killer and he has proof. I always figured she was not nearly the ingenue she wanted Harvey to see her as. Brody tells her that they don't have that kind of time. She says there must be some kind of mistake. His father is not a killer. Brody is adamant that he is. He tells her about the video he found and of the owl mask. She tells him it is crazy. Brody tells her this is crazy and they need to get out. She seemingly acquiesces and goes to get some things together. Turner is not doing well when Mom comes back with an IV stand. She tells Robin to hand her some gloves and guard the door. Yeah, that's it. Which is why I think I'm going to have to start a meth habit of my own just to keep up with this spastic editor and all of these bloody fucking cuts. We are back with the Harveys, and one of them is saying the other talks about justice. Probably the real Harvey. He doesn't think the altar wants justice. He just wants to burn it all down. The altar smiles and asks if motives really matter if the results are the same. Harvey tells him it does to him. The altar tells him just to call him to come out and play. Harvey tells him he will never do that, which is when the altar starts a brawl with Harvey. Back in the real world, Harvey is laying on the couch in his office, convulsing. At the hospital once more, Turner is coding, and Mom starts CPR. Back in Delusion Land, Harvey is getting his ass kicked by his own self. The altar is choking him and taunting him that eventually he will beg the altar to let him out so he can embrace all that they can be. Harvey smacks him over the head with an award and then starts choking the altar with his nameplate. The altar tells him the only reason he exists is because Harvey needs him. Harvey finally chokes him out and comes to in his office with an EMT holding a mask over his face. The EMT asks if he is okay, because he was dead for over a minute. Harvey thanks him, but he feels fine. Back with Robin, where she is telling her mom that Turner is stable. Mom says she still needs to run some tests. She thanks her mother, but Mom is not thrilled. She tells her not to thank her, not for this. And just as I figured, Brody's mom ain't packing shit when he comes in looking for her. She tells him they can't just walk out with nowhere to go. He then rats Stephanie out by saying, Steph says, and Mom breaks in with, Stephanie knows? He tells her that he didn't know who else to turn to. He says he knows it is insane and a lot to take in, but he will take care of it all. He will keep her safe. And when they hug, feminism explodes across my TV in all of its retarded glory, as shit just goes right off a cliff with the writing, as she shivs her own son. Rebecca starts her villain reveal speech, telling him he is just like his father, wanting to be the hero. She doesn't need a man to take care of her. She should be the one people fear, not his father. What the actual f***? And I'm glad they cut to commercial, because I doubt I could have taken another second of that f***ing retarded nonsense. Harvey is sitting before the fire in his office when they come back. The GCPD shrink comes in to make sure he is all right. He smiles and tells her he is fine, never felt better. Robin's mom comes into the hospital room and tells them everything looks good, miraculously so. She never saw a patient recover so quickly. When she pulls back the privacy curtain, however, Turner is gone. Robin is sitting on the end of the bed, looking contrite. She tells Mom not to worry. She was careful to make sure nobody saw her sneak him out. Mom goes off on Robin about being an accessory, about making her an accessory, maybe losing her license, going to jail. She is not sure how Robin got involved, but it is over. She is calling GCPD. Then Robin tells her mom about being Batman's sidekick. Robin. And Mom is dumbfounded. Lincoln finally comes to join the March family circus, telling Rebecca that Turner got away. She tells him that he can add Stephanie to the list of problems. She will need to be dealt with. He asks what she did, and Rebecca says it is more like what his son did, and she turns to look at the closed bedroom door. Lincoln looks and sees the closed door. He goes to see inside and finds the body. He tells her she didn't have to do that. She asks, do what? Clean up his mess? He shouldn't have held on to evidence, but men always need trophies. Did it make him feel powerful, killing the traitor? Then Rebecca unlocks Brody's phone and sees messages from Stephanie telling Brody she is worried about him, and she left messages concerning what they talked about with Harvey. She types a message back to Stephanie telling her that the footage is gone. Dad must have found it. He is taking Mom and disappearing and ditching the phone. Then she looks up at Lincoln and asks why he is still standing there. Go get a mop. Back at school, Harper wants to know if Stephanie is sure it is safe to go back there. Stephanie tells them that the authorities don't care where rich kids go to get baked, and lead from the bells was throwing off the sensors. She redirected them to the science lab. By the time they finished that wild goose chase, the radiation dissipated. She gets the text from Brody's phone and tells them that Brody's dad got the evidence before Brody could. Turner is sitting in the stacks of the library brooding when Duella comes in snarking. She tells him that he can't offend her, so go ahead and try. And he does, to no avail. She tells him that none of it bothers her, but if he shook off the spoiled rich kid thing and took his head out of his ass, he would see the entire team has been working non-stop to save his stupid life. If he is going to mope around like he is already dead, she wonders why they even bothered. He agrees. He tells her about what he thought his life would be in his head, but he was just lying to himself. She congratulates him. He figured out everybody is a liar. He smiles and tells her, not everybody. She never lied to him about how bad he was. She is always like that. She is glad he noticed. He is amazed that she is always Duella. She darts in and kisses him quickly before pulling back to look at him. He gives her a weird look before kissing her back. And then the clothes go flying. Lincoln takes a coffin with his son into a room. Inside the coffin, Brody's eyes open. And that is how they end the episode. This episode was all over the place, and it was infuriating to watch in its badness. I know, that's not much different from every other week, but this was just more and worse. It was harder to get through because much of it was predictable and thus boring, but it was also stupid. Other parts would have been interesting had they been written by better writers, and yet other parts were jerky. 180 turns with zero foundation that I am sure the writers thought would be clever reveals. Except they weren't. It was quite obvious there was something going on that would eventually be shown to be something completely different, only in a much more retarded way because it is CW. But let's get into specifics, shall we? I already talked about the completely imbecilic idea of Electrum last episode. I also touched on the retarded idea that Turner was sick because of radiation poisoning. What I was counting on was the way it played out being utterly retarded. And of course, Batwoman writers would not fail to bring the retarded. I mean, they went full retard on this whole thing. The idiots turning themselves into a junior version of the show House was ridiculous. That Harper first pulled a physician's desk reference out of nowhere, used it to diagnose radiation poisoning, got them to back away, and then came up with a Geiger counter out of an even more remote nowhere was hilarious. Seriously, if I had not been rolling my eyes hard enough to induce a seizure, I would have been laughing myself into an asthma attack. And not in a good way. Then we have the son of the leader of the Court of Owls, the super secret society that every criminal knows about, and some of the cops and the prosecutors have heard about, but nobody else believes in. Easily opens his father's safe that he stores his trophies and owl mask in as he looks for some pain pills. Did I get that right? Are you serious, CW? That would be like the son of the head of the NSA being able to hack into Dad's bank account because his father was stupid enough to make his password the word password. Or in this case, his son's birthday. At what point are we going to see something that makes the Court of Owls not look like a bunch of clowns? Every episode now seems to have something that shows them in a less than sinister light, as if they were a bunch of refugees from an abandoned home for the mentally challenged. And Dad kept the fucking camera showing him talking and murdering Cressida. That just took the cake. The entire moronic cake with stupid icing and a filling of dumb. Harvey obsessing over himself should have been a good storyline. Him wanting to talk to himself should have been even better, especially with an actor as good as Misha Collins. And when he is playing the alter, he is actually good. But then we get the squinting, bumbling idiot that is Harvey Dent on this show. Batwoman writers, what the f*** are you doing to Harvey Dent? And because he's an idiot, of course he downed 17 anti-anxiety pills in order to go talk to his alter, based solely on his alter telling him to. Why wouldn't he? And why wouldn't he do it in his office? After all, there is nothing wrong with the district attorney of Gotham who is running for mayor against the Court of Owls candidate popping a bunch of pills and flirting with Overdose where his assistant and anyone else who is either watching his office or accidentally coming to visit, happening upon his drug-induced trip to Delusion Land to talk to himself. Did I get all that right? Then we have the idiots getting their hands on some potassium iodide pills. Somehow. But they never gave one to Turner. Why? It would help him as well. And why didn't Cullen wind up with symptoms of radiation poisoning as well? He would have been handling the rock for a fair bit to make the fake. Certainly for longer than Turner when Robin healed him. Hell, Robin held on to it longer than Turner did. If it is dangerous to Turner to heal him by rubbing a wound, it would be equally dangerous to hold for a significant amount of time. Radiation does not work like powders or liquids, where it is much more dangerous to get into the bloodstream. Radiation waves would penetrate the body, even through the skin. So Robin and Cullen both should have been showing signs if the electrum were deadly enough to have Turner on death's door. Also, if Turner was at death's door, he would have died. That is how radiation poisoning works. For the most part, there really is no coming back from it once it gets to a certain stage. It is why the Russians, be they Soviets or Putinites, so love using polonium to poison dissidents and defectors. Then we have Robin revealing to Turner what the pages from Bruce's journal said. Why did she have them on her? That is not something you want to be carrying around. As a matter of fact, that is the sort of thing that, if you were stealing them in the first place, you would probably want to destroy them so they would not fall into nefarious hands. But no, there they conveniently were for her to give Turner as he is dying. Her explanation of why she hid them was fairly reasonable, and Turner was sick. So that scene was okay up to a point. The point it went off the rails was when they once again decided to try hanging blame for Turner's parents' death on Batman. As Robin explained, Batman doesn't kill, so this makes zero sense. F*** off, CW. Whether they come up with a less brand-damaging explanation than Bruce Wayne being a murderer or not, CW should never have been allowed to go there by Warner Brothers. Whether the parent company was AT&T or Discovery, Batman is the last character they still sell decent amounts of comic books with, and damaging him this way is stupid. Just as stupid as it was when Marvel decided to have Captain America come out as a Hydra agent a few years back in the comics. They changed it in a hot minute when fans erupted in anger. The only reason this show has not received the same reaction from Batman fans is, well, nobody watches this trash. At the time of recording, the final ratings for this week were not in, but last week's ratings were down to 330,000 with a .05 demo, the lowest rating of the season. And stupidity like hinting Batman killed his adopted son's parents is part of why nobody watches this creatively bankrupt dumpster fire. Then we have Stephanie go running when Brody calls, even though they are trying to figure out how to save Turner's life. That entire storyline this week was completely brainless, from Brody getting into the safe to the end of the episode. Any reasonably sane person would have told Brody to stick a pin in it until they were sure Turner was not going to die, which was around the same time Brody was getting shivved by Mom. While the cattiness that Harper shot her was too far, especially when everyone knows that she and Stephanie will eventually wind up scissoring before the end of the season, the attitude was right. As Harper points out, it is a true friend that bails to go talk to a guy she is not even that into while you are dying. When she shows up to talk to him, he acts like a 5-year-old. He sees the video of his dad killing someone that the news is blaming on Turner, and his first instinct is to call his girlfriend? I guess it was better than showing Mom, given what Mom eventually does, but still. My first instinct would be to make copies and send it to people I trusted outside of my family. If he had done that, Stephanie and a handful of others would have it. Instead, they have nothing. They meet up in person when he didn't even bring the camera with him. Brilliant. Way to go, writers. But then the story has to happen. This same idiocy I mentioned when I questioned why Rebecca was tolerating the whole Lincoln is an abusive monster situation. Since that was proven to be complete bullshit this week, I was right to question it. And why does Brody doubt Stephanie's explanation of the Court of Owls and his father's place in it? He saw the fucking video. What more does he need? A signed confession by good old dad while watching a replay of the murder and then the confession on a movie theater-sized screen? Brody is a dumbass. The fact that he is probably the new Talon is even more retarded than the court trying to recruit Turner for that position. As I said earlier, the actual conversation between Harvey and his alter ego should have been really good. But the writers and showrunners for this show only have so much really good in them, and I think they wasted it on the Robin Duella Eunice scene and the Stephanie Mom's Addiction scene. Instead, we get Harvey being told things he should have already guessed or known by the altar. played extremely well given the script deficiencies by Misha Collins. I was actually hoping that scene would end up with the alter scragging Harvey and taking over. I am tired of Misha Collins' portrayal of Harvey Dent. Maybe give him a chance to play the other Harvey Dent a while. But no, the writers and directors and showrunners would only f that up too. I was not surprised at Cullen wanting to stay with the idiots while Harper is still hell-bent on bailing as soon as they clear their names. Cullen actually has found a family he can hang with in the idiots. Harper is a shrewish bitch with a selfish streak a mile wide who doesn't want to stick around because she can't scissor Stephanie. Yet. How Harvey's dad's death somehow eluded Harvey as being anything but an honest accident is beyond me. Or how it eluded the police at the time. Nor am I all that surprised the writers made it so that Harvey's alter killed him. That was always where this was headed the second multiple personality disorder and child abuse was signaled as incoming. Hollywood has always been too fond of those particular tropes, and its use here is no better. Stephanie coming back in with news of Brody helping them in the middle of an argument about Turner dying was irritating. As I said, the Brody storyline just did not fit in with this episode. They are trying to cram too many things into this episode, and some of those things are trampling on the story beats of the others. That the idiots are of mixed minds about her announcement at least shows the writers were semi-intelligent enough to include a healthy dose of skepticism in some of those who have been on the lam for 10 episodes now, chasing one thing or another in hopes that it would be the thing to clear them, only to have them have to go on to the next fetch quest. Then the police show up, with Geiger counters, and spacesuits. How? Nowhere in this entire episode do they explain that. The only thing we get is that phone call where Lincoln says he has figured out a way to track them. And that is not nearly enough to explain the cops showing up with Geiger counters and spacesuits. And the school looks like it is fairly far from the inner city where they might have radiation detectors set up by Homeland Security in the wake of 9/11. I am not buying that they magically realized there was radiation coming from Gotham Academy. Nor do I believe they would be sent on a wild goose chase by a ditzy blonde sucking on a bong. Getting Turner into the tunnels would actually have done something, assuming they knew the court tracked them to the school in the first place. And it certainly was not the Geiger counters the GCPD had. Those are fairly short-ranged. Taking him to the hospital was something they should have done before he was minutes away from death. If he was that bad, he would have died. It is only the magic bullshit rock and the writer's serious lack of understanding about how radiation works that created the scene in the hospital. I imagine Robin's mom is going to be severely pissed next episode. I doubt it will be interesting because nothing with Robin's mom has been. Most of it has been stupid, as has Robin's reaction to it, and the reason for Mom's reason for it. Brody's dumbass trying to get Mom out of town with little explanation was blindingly retarded. Blindingly. Like my eyes rolled back in my head and I had a hard time convincing them to come back down so I could finish watching the retardedness. He picked up on none of the cues she was giving off that she knew about everything he was concerned about. Like that she was wholly unworried about Lincoln coming back and finding them preparing for an exodus. Picked up none of the hint that he was putting Stephanie in danger by mentioning her. And then we have the dumbest villain reveal ever as super femnazi tears her face off and guts her own son because he was trying to protect her from someone he knew to be a killer. And she was pissed at him for not fearing her like she was his murderer father. His mom. Someone he believed to be an abused spouse of a murderer. This is why people hate Hollywood these days, for coming up with this morally, intellectually, and creatively bankrupt sewage that is supposed to be entertainment. And I would bet they sat around the writer's room when they came up with this crap, looking at each other like proud puppies who just brought the ball back to their master. Unfortunately, in this case, it is a ball of feces that they bounced all over the living room carpet in the middle of a children's birthday party. Then Rebecca shivs Brody. Actually, I'm not sure what it was with. But he is dead. Or is he? Apparently not, because he opens his eyes in the coffin at the end of the show. I guess the downside to being shivved by your psycho-feminist mother, who is the real leader of the Court of Owls, is she can bring your stupid ass back and do it all over again because she finally got her hands on the Electrum. The other thing I disliked about that whole sequence is when Lincoln comes in and they begin the deconstruction of his character. Up to this point, he has been a strong male character. Evil and abusive and the major villain of the piece through 9 9/10 of an episode, but still a fairly strong character. However, Hollywood has a major dislike of strong male characters, whether they be good guys or bad guys. If you don't think that is true, name one other strong male character on this show. Go ahead. I'll wait. Yeah, I didn't think so. Also, we can't have both strong male characters and weak female characters. So, of course, there was always going to be something going on with Rebecca March, beyond her boinking Harvey and cuckolding Lincoln, of course. I figured all was not as it seemed when she played up to Harvey like a damsel in distress. That her son wanting to protect her set her off, triggering his stabbing, was inconsistent with that earlier pose. But whatever. Lincoln comes in and she treats revealing their son discovering their not-so-secret identity like rubbing a dog's nose in the giant pile of shit he left in the middle of the rug. And he acts like an abused 10-year-old. Not like a guy whose wife just gutted his one and only child. It was all complete crap. Oh, and I forgot. They finally got around to having Turner and Duella suck face. Actually, they got a little further than that. So, that annoyance is out of the way. This was another episode with no redeemable scenes. The Harvey meets Harvey thing should have been. But it is hard to have a great scene when only half of the scene is working and the other half is a squinting moron 4 steps behind the side that is actually clicking. Even Duella finally jumping Turner was not that entertaining because Turner is an idiotic lump. We are now 10 episodes in and nothing of substance has happened. Batman is still dead. The idiots are still idiots, on hook for it, no closer to clearing themselves. The Court of Owls is still in charge, somehow, despite being a group of morons, and are actually ahead of the game from where we started because they now have the magic bullshit rock of immortality. Oh, and Harvey is still a squinting moron with more mental issues than Time magazine. Even the characters who seem to have gotten a little progression in their stories haven't really moved. 10 episodes of stupid heists, fetch quests, romantic teen angst and tension, and enough stupid crap to fill the Pacific Ocean. With 3 episodes left and still no word that Gotham Knights has been canceled by CW, I am not sure how they will finish the season up, but it will inevitably be stupid. And end on a cliffhanger. That is stupid too. But at least we get to see Duella's mom next episode. That gets you a little excited, right? Right? That is all I have for this video. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share the video, and comment down below. I appreciate it all. The next video will be my take on the fall of Disney Marvel. Until then, tschüss.